Do you know what happened in August here? You see, when you read the newspapers, I mean, my son filmed what was going on, but when you read the newspapers, of course I was here. I couldn't leave my house. I only would go out early during the day. The police were barricading here. You see, I wish I could just go on television. I want to scream to the world. They said that the blacks are rioting against the Jews in Crown Heights and that the Jews were fighting back. Do you know that the blacks who came here to riot were not my neighbors? I don't love my neighbors. I don't know my neighbors. There's one lady on President Street, Claire. I adore her. She's my girlfriend's next door neighbor. I've had a manicure done in her house and we sit in kibitz and stuff. But I don't know. I told you, we don't mingle socially because of the difference of food and religion and what have you here. But the people in my community want exactly what I want out of life. They want to live in nice homes. They all go to work. They couldn't possibly have houses here if they didn't. Generally, they have two incomes that come in. They want to send their kids to college. They want to live a nice, quiet life. They want to shop for their groceries and cook their meals and go to their Sunday picnics. They just want to have decent homes and decent lives. The people who came to riot here were brought by this famous Reverend Al Sharpton, which I'd like to know who ordained him. He brought in a bunch of kids who didn't have jobs in the summertime. I wish you could see the New York Times. Unfortunately, it was on page 20. I mean, they interviewed one of the black girls on Utica Ave. She said, the guys will make you pregnant at night and in the morning not know who you are. And if you're sitting on a front stoop and it's very, very hot and you have no money and you have nothing to do with your time and someone says, come on, you want to riot? You know how kids are. The fault lies with the police department. The police department did nothing to stop them. I was sitting here in the front of the house when bottles were being thrown, and the sergeant tells 500 policemen with clubs and helmets and guns to duck. And I said to him, you're telling them to duck? What should I do? I don't have a club or a gun. Had they stopped it on the first night, this kid who came from Australia, you know, his parents were Holocaust survivors. He didn't have to die. He worked, did a lot of research in Holocaust studies. He didn't have to die. What happened on Utica Avenue was an accident. Jewish people do not drive vans into 7-year-old boys. You want to know something? Black people do not drive vans into 7-year-old boys. Hispanic people don't drive vans into 7-year-old boys. It's just not done. People like Jeffrey Dahmer, maybe they do it, but average citizens do not go out and try to kill 7-year-old boys. It was an accident, but it was allowed to fester and to steam and all that. When you come here, do you see anything that's going on? Riots? No. But Al Sharpton and the likes of him, like Dougherty, who, by the way, has been in prison, and all of a sudden he became Reverend Dougherty. They once did an expose on him. But these guys live off this. You understand? People are not going to give them money, contribute to their causes, unless they're out rebel rousing. My black neighbors? I mean, I spoke to them. They were hiding in their houses just like I was. We were scared. I was scared. I was really frightened. I had 500 policemen sitting in front of my house every day. I had mounted police, but I couldn't leave my block. Because when it got dark, I couldn't come back in. I couldn't meet anyone for dinner. Oh, thank God. I told you my children were all out of town. My son was in Russia. The coup was exactly the same day as the riot, and I was very upset about it. He was in Russia running a summer camp, and I was very concerned when I heard about that. I hadn't heard from him the night the riot started. When I did hear from him, I told him to stay in Russia. He'd be safer there than here, and he was. Going into my super objective, I believe the super objective of Rosalind was that she needed to get that safety as well as the fear that she had, and she needed to convey that through her emotions. I think she was mainly trying to share how scared she was and also the lack of action done to combat, and assist her fear and quell her fears. So there were a couple of different beats. The first beat that I have was during the beginning of the monologue when she was responding to a question, and she said, "Of course I was here." And to me, the reason that she was doing that and her objective was that she was trying to assert her power into, okay, I was here and I can speak on this. And the tactic that she used was by, being overly dramatic, of course I was here, and just continuing to explain, how horrible it was that she could only go up during the day, and just the negative impact it had on her life. So that was the first one. And then the second one I said was when she had the question of, do you know that the blacks who came here to riot were not my neighbors? So in that case, I think that her objective was to ensure that everyone knew that the people that came here to riot were not from her community. Although she did say that she didn't even know her black neighbors, she was sure that the people that did riot were not from her neighborhood. I think this tactic that she used was kind of just, kind of lying in a way. That she just tried to use the strategy of almost like slander of, do you know that the blacks who came here were not from my neighborhood, even though she truly did not know maybe where that they had come from. The next beat that I said was about Al Sharpton, when she said, the people who came to riot here were brought here by this famous Reverend Al Sharpton, which I'd like to know who ordained him. So for this beat, I believe her objective is to place blame and to want everyone to know that Reverend Al Sharpton is in the wrongdoing, and he's also, by the way, who even ordained him while we're here talking about it. And I think the tactic she used also was slandering his name, as well as accusing him. None of this wouldn't happen if you didn't bring all these people here to riot. Going on to the next beat, which I was further down on page 129, which was about the police department. She says, the fault lies with the police department. The police department did nothing to stop them. So I believe the objective of this one as well was to place blame. She wanted the police to admit that they were wrong. She wanted the police to be accountable for their actions or lack thereof. The tactics that she used was just blaming. She just flat out accused them and let them know that everything that happened is due to, is the fault of the police department. The next beat I said was when she kind of went on to a little tangent about Jewish people and how they don't drive vans. So she says, Jewish people do not drive vans into 7-year-old boys. You want to know something? Black people do not drive vans into 7-year-old boys. Hispanic people don't drive vans into 7-year-old boys. It's just not done. So I believe the objective of this is for her to maybe quell any fears that she has of that actually being a racially profiled crime, or actually being a crime overall, whether it be drunk driving or driving under substances abuse. I think that Roslyn, the objective of her screaming this so that anyone who still thought it was due to color, it's wrong. It was just an accident. That's all it was, and don't take it out of context. And the strategy she used is just straight out almost like screaming in your face. She's just trying to make sure you digest this, that it was an accident. So I think she's definitely just using the tactic almost of manipulation, of trying to verbally manipulate you into believing, okay, I understand where she's coming from, because they're not Jeffrey Dahmer. They couldn't have wanted to kill that boy, when that really wasn't the meaning. And the last one that I chose was when she started off about her son being in Russia. So she said, thank God, I told you my children were all out of town. My son was in Russia. The coup was exactly the same day as the riot. So, when she changed into this beat, I believe her objective was to make herself feel better, that although she may not be in a safe situation, her son and her children were not put in harm's way, which I think as her being a mother, definitely helped her cope. It was definitely a coping mechanism, definitely shifting blame, and her objective was to make sure, all this stuff happened to me, but don't worry, it didn't happen to my children. Although children passed away in that accident, my children were safe. And the tactic that she used is really just sharing. I don't think it's in any way accusing anyone. I think it's the tactic she uses just self-acceptance and allowing herself to realize a lot of worse things could have happened, but at least they didn't happen to my children. Um, and those were the ones that I believed that I had there. I don't think there was anything else that said, let me know if I'm missing anything else in here.